take two, because the first one was to get the good word out and get people to go watch the movie. And I gotta admit, I'm a little disappointed with you guys there. Just over 400 million? Really? That it? I mean, yeah, there's no China or Russia here, but I thought this was gonna clear 500 easy. But whatever, I said I was gonna do a more in-depth review when the movie actually came out on home video, so here it is. And of course, I got the Best Buy exclusive with the badass game art. I don't even do 4K, but how could you pass this up? Why was this not the default art? My overall assessment is the same. It's an awesome kid/family superhero film. It's exactly what I wanted the first movie to be. So, if you enjoyed the first one, you'll probably love this one. If you thought the first one had potential, this one definitely delivers. The movie certainly plays a lot more with the source material. Tails and Knuckles join the mix. You got the Master Emerald. You've got some authentic badniks this time around. And even if the fact that the movie takes place on Earth bugs you for whatever reason, despite the fact that games have largely done that anyway, several action sequences in the movie look like they were ripped straight out of the game. Honestly, where the movie happens is irrelevant as long as it looks like it belongs in the games. Alright, we can start off with some basic stuff. Got Ben Schwartz returning as Sonic. He's still my favorite Sonic voice now. I didn't mention it in the first one, but a lot of that probably has to do with the fact that he actually reminds me of Ryan Drummond. I always thought his more youthful voice was more appropriate for Sonic. Roger Craig Smith is probably the better actor, but Ryan Drummond had the better voice. So, Ben Schwartz is like the best of both worlds. Jim Carrey returns as Robotnik, and once again he is glorious in this role. Maybe he could tone it down a little, but he is otherwise perfect.
Full disclosure, you won't be there.
Got Colleen O'Shaughnessy returning as Tails from the game, which is really surprising, and she does as good a job as she ever has. And Idris Elba as Knuckles. Overall, I liked his performance. I think he's got a good voice. The accent slips a few times. It is kind of weird that the cast goes from megastar Jim Carrey, rising star Idris Elba, TV level star Ben Schwartz, because I don't think he's that famous, and video game actor Colleen O'Shaughnessy. I mean, she's not a star yet. Maybe she might be. Now, if I'm being completely honest, I would have rather had a different voice for Tails. I don't knock Hollywood productions for using Hollywood talent, because that's just kind of how it works. But I guess voicing 8-year-old boys is probably a short list, so if she got to voice Tails in the movie, I would hope that she earned it, and it wasn't just because she was cheap. Alright, I guess we can talk some quality values here. CGI looks great. I'm not too well versed on the industry, but from what I gather from other reviews, it does look great. It's not necessarily uniformly great, but I've played so many video games, you could probably splice in some game footage and I wouldn't have noticed. Junkie XL is back on the soundtrack, and it's the same deal. It does its job well, but you're probably not going to remember it after the movie's over. There's some good choices of licensed music though, but I have to ask, where are all the themes from the games? There's virtually none in here. You pretty much just have this scene right here, although there's also a little bit of game music here apparently, and here, although I couldn't even notice. That's how minor it is. That Emerald Hill remix from the trailer, not in the movie. Why not? Not much to say about the plot. Robotnik meets up with Knuckles and he gets off the Mushroom Planet. And if you played any of the games, you can probably guess where things go from there. Everyone ends up looking for an emerald of great power of some sort. Spoilers are a completely moot point. None of the twists are surprising to anyone who played the original games. Just like its predecessor, it's a very well-made movie. Sure, if you want to be anal, you can nitpick a lot of logical inconsistencies. Like, can Knuckles really match Sonic's speed? How? Why is Sonic able to use super speed to solve this issue, but he can't do it in another? Although the sequel does downplay this a bit, there's only one Quicksilver-ish scene, and it's more subdued. It's another heaping helping of the first movie. It's very entertaining, It's got some badass action. It's pretty goddamn funny. And, well, it's also pretty sweet and cute. You add it all up and it's a clear winner for superior sequel in my book. I can't believe some people actually think the first movie's better. The only thing I would concede is that maybe it does some of the finer points of cinema better, like pacing and story distribution, but is that really what you're caring about when you're watching a Sonic the Hedgehog movie? I vote no. I go to see a Sonic movie to see something that looks like a Sonic movie, not a dime a dozen road trip plot. Simply put, this sequel goes much further with the video game material than its predecessor did, and that is far and away the most important thing about the movie. As a big fan of Tails, I love his depiction in this movie. Tails is cool in the movie, which is nice to see after pretty much every other adaptation tends to shove him to the side, often to make rooms for whatever lame-ass characters they came up with. It almost seems like a rule that if you have an adaptation of Sonic, there has to be like at least one new original character, but this movie doesn't do that, which is honestly really refreshing. Okay, I guess there's Longclaw, although that does still happen to a little extent, because Knuckles gets a fair amount of screen time as well, and arguably more in the grand scheme of things. I honestly think they should have held him back for another movie. I think Sonic and Tails could have easily carried this one, but what we get in Tails is good. He's definitely got a strong portrayal in this one. He takes a lot more initiative than he usually does. Hell, he makes his appearance saving Sonic, which, by the way, I actually predicted, although I thought they'd have more of a spoof on Terminator. I'm actually surprised they didn't make any jokes considering how similar the sequence plays out. Overall, I like the changes they made to make the characters more interesting. While I definitely prefer video game Sonic to movie Sonic, I do understand that the game Sonic is not necessarily the most interesting of characters. What's okay for a video game doesn't play as well in a movie because you just watch it, so the characters should be a little more interesting. Actually kind of weird that the games generally don't give Sonic any sort of an arc, even though Tails and a few other characters have arcs. Sonic usually doesn't undergo any such thing. Once again, the movie does, and this one sees him move closer to his video game depiction, so that's awesome. They've even got him going through a superhero phase, which definitely answers the question I've always been wondering about. Sonic saves the planet from an evil madman, so he is technically a superhero, but does he act like a superhero in his spare time? Does he stop common criminals too? Tails is mostly the same, although it does go a bit more in-depth into his backstory, even though the game's already established that he was picked on. It never actually came up in the game proper. The movie's definitely more explicit, and I am a bit disappointed they didn't go any deeper on it. Maybe they thought it was too similar to the first movie where Sonic didn't have any friends, or maybe it was just too depressing for kids to handle. I mean, sure, it's sad that Sonic can't make any friends, but Tails actually had enemies. And no friends. I mean, god damn, that is a low even for movies. I've seen a lot of movies where you have an outcast character, but he still has at least one friend who's in his corner. Tails didn't even have that. But far more importantly, unless I'm mistaken, I think the movie is the only one that really goes beyond Sonic and Tails as BFFs. I mean, sure, Tails admires Sonic, but it's never explained why. I mean, we can logically assume it's because Sonic's awesome, but the movie actually works a message into it with a nice punch.
You are weird too. That made me think maybe being weird isn't so bad.
Knuckles is definitely the most changed of the bunch. The movie floats somewhere between the mainline Knuckles depiction from the games and the Sonic Boom iteration. That is to say, the movie plays up his lack of intelligence for comedic value, but it does not make him into the buffoon from Sonic Boom. He's just nowhere near the dignified but somewhat meat-headed jock from the games. And most of the humor does come from the fact that he's ignorant of earthly stuff. So he almost manages to keep his dignity intact, but he's still clearly not a very sharp knife in the drawer. There's a lot more action in this movie, and it's a lot more bombastic. We're not on the level of Marvel yet, but this is far beyond most Disney films. Now, I will say, upon my second viewing, I didn't find the movie as funny as the first, or at least I definitely didn't laugh as much on the second viewing. Nonetheless, there are still some good jokes in there. Maybe the jokes are more of the one-and-done variety, but I think it might also just simply be the movie is considerably more serious than the first. There's a lot more action, there's more emphasis on the plot, so it stands to reason that there would be less jokes total, as opposed to the first movie that had to pad out a good chunk of its runtime with stupid antics. Now, the biggest complaint by far is the runtime at approximately 2 hours. To be more specific, 1 hour and 53 minutes before the credits proper start to roll. I personally have no problem with the runtime. When I go into a movie, I expect it to be an hour and a half. I don't demand it to be. It doesn't affect my rating on the movie. It's just simply what I expect. So, 2 hours is a little above average, nothing more. I've certainly gone for much longer movies like No Time to Die, and had no problems breezing through it. There's certainly no problem sitting at home watching the Blu-ray when you don't have to sit in the theater for an additional 20 minutes waiting for the movie to start. If I'm enjoying the movie, I don't really care. I'm definitely not one to say, I think that movie could have been about 15 minutes shorter. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't appreciate if a movie is more lean and mean, and I most certainly do notice when there are unnecessary scenes that waste our time, which I do have to address, because the first movie already did this very well. First movie might not have had that much in the way of source material, but as the saying goes, they shot the money. They focused on Sonic and Robotnik. We've got Sonic and we've got Robotnik. What can we do with them? Well, we've never gone into Robotnik's backstory, so let's do that. Well, Sonic never really had much of a backstory either, so let's give him something of a nugget. Probably shouldn't explain too much. And the humans largely exist to just simply form a complete story. Now, this movie takes 2 steps forwards by even further trimming the humans from the movie. Hell, the story quickly has the Wachowskis go off to vacation, where they leave Sonic behind to fend for himself, which is of course when the events of the movie kick off. And then Tails shows up and now he's Sonic's partner. Honestly, it's what the first movie should have done. I don't think they should have made the first movie without Tails. Oh yes, it's a very blatant excuse to have the human characters leave the movie so we can focus on the game characters, but I don't think anyone's gonna complain. Oh wait, that's right, the dumbass critics did. Significant portions of the film pass without any original human characters making an appearance. However, the movie also does take a step backwards by having a sequence involving the humans that is longer than anything the first movie had. It's still only a short diversion, but it's definitely longer than anything the previous movie had. And now that I have the Blu-ray, I can see that it lasts approximately 8 minutes. Some of which does include some actual plot-relevant stuff, so it's not a complete wash. And while I fully admit that I did still enjoy the sequence and found it somewhat funny, I can't help but ask the question as to, why are we even doing this? More to the point, why did you choose to do it like this? The overall idea that Sonic and Tails would be captured by Gun and have to be rescued by the human characters wasn't such a terrible idea on paper. There was no reason to suspect that the Wachowskis would be completely removed from the movie. Obviously, they would get wrapped up in what was happening at some point. But why is it Maddie and Rachel doing the saving? Why isn't it Tom and Maddie? Why did Rachel even need to return for the sequel? I'll tell you why. She didn't. Although, if I had to speculate, maybe she had like a multi-picture deal. Yeah, good foresight. It just boggles the mind why they thought to do it this way. Why couldn't you just have Tom and Maddie on vacation, Gun is watching them, then Tom has to save Sonic like he does in the movie, and the story would have played out exactly the same way, and it would have been even shorter, and less dumb. And since we're talking about unnecessary scenes, here's another one. It's not as long, but it's just as dumb and pointless. Wade goes to the coffee shop, And it doesn't even matter because this scene contributes fuck all to the story. You could literally cut this sequence out of the movie and the movie would lose no coherence whatsoever. Oh, but wait till you hear the kicker. They actually cut the narrative justification for why the scene even existed in the first place. Why would you not keep that scene and cut the rest?
I'm gonna have to ruin Tom's vacation.
There, simple, I just improved the movie. Alright, I guess I have to address the bar sequence. But I'm gonna be completely honest, I overall enjoyed it. It's dumb, yes, but it is a Sonic and Tails centric scene, and I absolutely live for that shit. And just for the record, I would bet you money that if this movie had taken place on Sonic's home planet, this scene would still be in the movie. Except instead of humans, it would have been a bunch of mean polar bears or some shit. This movie could have been 30 minutes longer, and as long as those 30 minutes involved Sonic and Tails being bros, I'd be all for it. Honestly, the movie should have had more stuff like this. It just should have had a less stupid reason for it. But it doesn't have to be that sophisticated either. They're in Siberia and they weigh like 30 pounds apiece. Just have them get a little bit drunk and get into trouble. What? Not in a PG-13 movie? Oh wait, this isn't even PG-13. Well, shit. Alright, because there's absolutely no other logical place to wedge it in there, let's talk about the novelization. If you saw the previous video, you know exactly what to expect. It's a very simple novelization because it's for kids, so really light on a lot of details, but nonetheless, it is a pretty nice supplement to the movie. It does have some additional sequences that aren't in the movie. It omits a few. So how long is this? 221 pages. Well, I guess 22. Whatever. Now, this thing is lean and mean. Rachel, Randall, they only appear in this one particular scene. The plot twist is still there. It's just handled really fast. Once again, if it wasn't needed for the story, the book probably doesn't have it. And once again, some of the characterization is different. Tails is a little more gung-ho in this one. Sonic still got his 90s cartoon attitude, which is a little out of place with this Sonic, but if that's the one you like, then it's here. And they even name-drop Mobius. Did Sega clear this? I'm not calling this better than the movie. The movie's definitely better. I'm just saying, it's a nice supplement. You do get some nice additional scenes. You get a little more characterization. For example, during the snowboarding sequence, Sonic throws the compass to Tails really early, and then there's a sequence where Tails is actually fighting with Robotnik. He actually manages to get it. Then he gets blown the fuck up. He's the one who actually almost goes over the cliff, and Sonic has to go save him instead of the compass. Which actually does fit Knuckles' dialogue better. He didn't exactly save Tails instead of the compass. He was definitely more concerned about saving Tails than the compass, but, you know, technicality. Some of these scenes were partially filmed, but left on the cutting room floor, which is kind of sad. I especially missed this one where Robotnik trips balls, but that was probably cut because PG-13. Seriously, make PG-13 Sonic. Those are really my only complaints on the movie, is that this thing could have been way much better if Paramount just simply had more faith in the source material. Which is strange because they bought the rights because they thought they could make a movie and have it sell. Why would you not have more faith in the source material? You've got plenty of characters, there's plenty of lore, everything you need is right here. I think that's probably why they brought in Knuckles. They probably thought Tails by himself wouldn't be enough, but I think if you just had Tails and the Chaos Emeralds, it would have been enough for fans. And in fact, it definitely would have been better in a lot of ways. How cool would it have been if we saw, like, what Tails was doing tracking down Sonic in the first place? Could have gotten a little more home planet on that. Did he also have to hide from the echidnas? Sonic's an orphan. Knuckles is an orphan. What about Tails? I would assume he's an orphan because he left his home planet to come for Sonic, so he's not leaving a family behind, is he? I can remember the first time I played Sonic Adventure. I enjoyed it, Then I saw the Spider-Man movie, the Sam Raimi one, of course, and I thought, wow, Sonic could totally have an adventure like this. It would be really badass. Sure, it's a little silly, but of course, Spider-Man was really silly and stupid if you want to be completely honest, but we're willing to roll with it. I mean, hell, Who Framed Roger Rabbit is a noir story, a very serious one at that, involving cartoon characters. But that's what makes it so interesting to watch. We could totally have a serious PG-13 Sonic superhero movie, and people would totally roll with it. It doesn't have to be as kiddie as it is now. I understand that you can attract a younger audience and that would be able to handle the video game, but even so, they can still follow along. As it is, it's a great kid/family action film. It's good like Big Hero 6 is. I like that movie. It hands down beats its predecessor for best video game adaptation yet, but that probably doesn't mean much to most people. I can safely say if I was a kid, this would be my favorite movie of all time. But as an adult, I can still recognize it as a good movie. It entertained me, it made me laugh, and it even touched a little, which is not an easy feat for a cynical bastard like me. I said the first movie was a solid B. I'd be willing to give this one an A. An A- probably, but still an A. So yeah, Paramount, if you're ever ready to pull an Amazing Spider-Man and reboot the franchise, give me a call. I'll whip something up that's more faithful to the games. My fee is open in negotiation. We'll make billions here. I mean, let's just read some of these highlights. At least some of these publications that badmouth the movie did actually write articles that were very critical about the fact that the original Sonic design was changed. They thought that shouldn't have happened. They called us entitled fanboys. Like, it's such a radical thought that, hey, you make a movie and it doesn't look that good, we don't want to see it. But if it does look good, we'd want to see it. Funny how that works, huh? Oh, I will give them this, unlike with the reviews for the first, none of these boomers confused rings with coins. I mean, I know you may not be a Sonic fan, but did you even pay attention during the movie? How do you confuse a ring for a coin? It's like, yeah, looking at these, it's clear that they don't understand what the point of the games even was. Several of them actually complain that the human characters don't have enough to do. Because, yeah, that's what we care about. Like, they even say, like, the first movie was better. Because we really liked that generic road trip bonding with humans. Nah, Tails, Knuckles, gigantic robots. Nah, fuck that shit. This is what we wanted. Say that it gets generic because now it's a superhero movie. Yeah, have you ever played the games that dated back to 1991? Yeah, they were superhero stories. I mean, I'm not saying it was an original premise back then, but it definitely predates the trend that you criticize it for falling into. It's called Grandfather Clause, bitch. Recognize it. Like, yeah, this doesn't even sound like a negative review, so why the hell is it considered rotten? Wait, what the fuck? Yeah, I think it says that it's a 4 out of 5. How's that rotten? Oh yeah, here's a fun one. Does it sound like a lot? Because it absolutely is a lot, and I'm reading it out of order, but whatever. No, actually, it wasn't a lot. This is a pretty simple story. Oh boy, here we go. The first Sonic worked unexpectedly well because it thrust a wisecracking alien to a small town filled with humans. Yeah, that was definitely the best part of the first movie. I mean, honestly, the review just kind of comes off more as like one of those stuck-up snobs. Disappointed that they had to watch a movie that wasn't deep. He also seems really pissed off that they were asked not to spoil anything. It sounds like a perfectly reasonable request to me. Don't know why you're so pissed about it. Knuckles and Tails joined the Sega Mascot and Rush Job sequel. In the time it has taken Nintendo to prep a big screen Mario Bros. Reboot, Sega has already delivered another fun fan service Sonic movie. Wait, what? Those two sentences like massively contradict each other. Well, it's a title and a subtext. Is that what they're called? Subtitle? Wait, this is a negative review? A fun fan service movie sounds awesome. Basically says the movie sucks and Natasha Rothwell is the MVP. Yeah, enough said. Can you believe these people are actually paid to do this for a living? Hopefully they need some welfare to supplement it. The South China Morning Post. Is this even going to come out in China? Well, I don't think anyone cares what China says, because we can't trust anything. But I can guess at what they're going to say. Go buy another ticket for the Battle of Chanxing Lake. Also, get your 7th booster, and don't go to college, just get a job in manufacturing.